Let us take a look of the very first data science application domain that I want to introduce to you guys, which lies in cybersecurity area. As you know, cybersecurity is one of the most popular research areas in computer science currently. The need of that is obvious. All kind of positions offered for the cybersecurities are actually pretty high pay and high flexibilities as well. So they are considered as great jobs. This topic I want to introduce you is mainly based on one of my PhD student, Sharifo's dissertation proposal. So I have also included this proposal into our Blackboard so that you will be able to take a look at what it looks like. And you can have a feeling of what it looks like to finish a PhD degree, what kind of things are needed. I believe it's going to be a great experience for you, even though many of you probably not going to choose the master thesis route. It's also nice to have a feeling, take a look what it looks like to accomplish some thesis or dissertation like documents. So let's start with the topic. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity itself is actually a broad area as well. But if we focus on a security area, security of a system involves the protection of the connectivity, integrity, vulnerability of the network and its resources. So you basically want to protect itself to prevent from intrusion, malicious attacks. So intrusions are malicious entity in a system, including worms, virus, trojans, bots, many other things, ransomware, that compromise those important security measures. And therefore, intrusion detection is actually what we try to focus on in this thesis. Intrusions are malicious entities compromising the important security measures, as we have mentioned. We have heard about many of those things, worms, viruses, trojans, bots, but how do we distinguish one from another? I actually find a very good website for you guys to take a look. And of course, I have summarized some most frequently things attacks in the following slides. The primary concerns of an intrusion detection system is to determine the illegitimate activities in a network, as well as identify the unauthorized acquisition of the system assets. So basically there are two major areas. One is about the networking, the other one is about the computers or the machines that you guys are using. So let's take a look of the difference between virus and worms. How are we able to distinguish from one to the other? To classify as virus or worm, malware must have the ability to propagate. So that is something we try to identify first. If they can spread, they can go from one machine to another machine, they can be considered as virus or worm. So how do we distinguish from virus and worm? The difference is that worm operates more or less independently of other files. So they are standalone program. Compared with virus, that is something usually need a host program to go with. So that's, and viruses usually exist inside of exe file. So if you're going to download something from a website, from anywhere for exe file, when you execute it, most of the time your operating system will ask you, are you sure? Are you certain this is safe? Unlike virus, worm is usually some standalone program that focusing on the problems of the operating system, the loopholes over there, so they try to attack those things by itself. So that is a distinguish between virus and worm. Worm is more like a standalone program. Virus needs a host to stay on. Ransomware is another type of malicious attack that they try to lock down your computers unless you pay them, and then they will freeze you for use your own computers again. Of course, there's a lot of theories that when you hit by a ransomware, never pay, because when you pay, they will probably let you use your computer for a while, and then they will lock it again, so that they will be able to get more money out of you. So that's one type of attacks. The other two is the one that we have to discuss in the earlier slide. Virus is type of malware that propagates by inserting a copy of itself into a part of another program. So they will have two programs installed. One is the one that you wanted, the other one is the one that comes with it. In contrast to virus, which requires a spreading of an infected host file, worms are standalone software that do not require a host. So that is another thing. Trojan is something more interesting, somewhere between the two, but it's independent. Trojan is another type of malware named after the wooden horse, the famous story of the Greeks used to infiltrate Troy. It is a harmful piece of software. So itself is the problem software, but it looks like differently. It looks like a legit software that you install into it. So it's not comes with another thing, and it's just a disguised program, basically. So how do we detect intrusion? There are two major categories of the intrusion detecting system. Network-based and host-based and IDS are the two fundamental categories based off the hosting environment. IDS stands for intrusion detection system, by the way. So there are two major areas. One is router-based intrusion detection system, has been discussed as a part of multi-agent based architecture in LAN, basically in your network system. Host-based intrusion detection system identify the intrusion on the local environment, such as your own computer, in the Unix, Linux system, in the Windows system. So if we take a look of the next slide, it can help you understand. So if we are looking into the red dots, they are considered as the networking router-based intrusion detection system. If you are looking at the intrusion detection system on the blue dot, which are the local machines, they are considered as the second type. And therefore, these are the two major distinguishes between the intrusion detection systems. And basically, to do in different systems, you try to embed your sensors. So if you embed your sensors over there, then that is going to be considered as the network version of the intrusion detection system. While you try to read the logs inside of each machine, then that would be considered as the local version of the intrusion detection system. Intrusion detection techniques. So no matter which one that you try to use, the environment, the techniques are considered as different styles of the techniques. So these detection techniques can exist in both networking or in the local host. They are pretty standard techniques that you can expect in this cybersecurity area. So there are majorly two, and there is another one that's a hybrid, a combination of two. So let's take a look at it. The first one is anomaly based. The deviance from the normal behavior is detected by applying statistical methods, clustering, neural network, support vector machine, and or outlier detection approach. So the first style is basically try to detect the outliers. You know, in the data log that you have, probably 99% of them are fine. They are not malicious attacks, they are regular behaviors. Only a small portion of the data or the traffics are considered as malicious. And therefore, for the anomaly based is try to identify that small portion, which is of course considered as the outlier approach. And therefore, based on what you have learned in the data mining class, you know that we can use statistical method, we can use clustering. Clustering is pretty good in detecting the outliers. Neural network, support vector machine, and outlier detection approach to detect this anomaly based attacks or intrusions. On the other side, the other part is misuse-based. So what is misuse-based? Misuse-based intrusion detection system maintains a set of rules and detect intrusion based on those rule sets. So this misuse-based requires the pre-knowledge or the label that we were talking about in classification. So they are known attacks. Based on those known attacks, we can generate the rules, try to find what are the traffics that considers intrusion. On the other side, anomaly-based is indicating that based on all the data that we have, we try to pick up the outliers, and those outliers may be threats, and maybe they are not. So there are two different things, and basically it gives you a very good idea of that. The first one is more likely a clustering approach because it's unsupervised learning. On the other one, this is more like a supervised learning because you need to be able to see the rules it has been generated. That means you have the label out of it. Of course, the hybrid version is the combination of the two, and why do we need the hybrid version? And of course, it's because that both of them has some problems. The first one, anomaly-based, has the problem is indicating that the false positive rate may be high because, like I said, we may be able to pick up 1% of the outliers, and maybe only half of those are really attacks, so that we will end up with the high false positive rate. On the other case, for misuse-based, you need to know what happened when you try to do the detection. That means if that is a new attack, you may overlook that. So that both of them have some advantages and disadvantages. So the hybrid one is overcome the zero-day attack. Basically, is the try to overcome the misuse-based approach and reduce the false alarm, which is the problem that comes from anomaly-based. So, of course, there are a lot of challenges that you would see. There are majorly 5 different challenges. The first one is the deployment challenges. Deployment challenges indicating that when you try to place your sensors, they are costly. Depending on the size of your network. If your network is small, then that's fine. We can make as many sensors as possible. But when you are trying to handle an enterprise network, then it's not reasonable to put the sensors on every single machine. It will be very difficult. It will cost a lot of money. So that how would you find the best ratio according to your sensors as well as the protective percentage? And that's going to be a trade-off over there. There's also something like what we call a high-speed networking. When the traffic are in the high-speed form, there's often some packages will drop, and in person's perspective, that's fine because if the packages are dropped, you can request one more, and since it's a high-speed networking, you probably won't be able to see the difference. However, if we look into the log information, those kind of things will probably you are tracing some threads and all of a sudden it dropped, then you need to research for the whole threads again. That will be a major problem in the high-speed networking situation. Management challenges. This kind of log is usually huge, seriously huge. In our next chapter, we can take a look of an example of what the data may looks like, and that can give you a more better ideas about how do you handle this kind of data, what is a log looks like. Usually there are gigabyte, terabytes. So how would you be able to filter out the obvious safe informations and focus on the problematic situations? It's going to be a big challenge over here. Technical challenges. Some intrusion detection system becomes the primary target of attacks. So basically, if you are a malicious attack, intrusion, what will you do? You probably want to take down the intrusion detection system first. And how the easiest way is that if you can find a way to disable the sensor of the intrusion detection system, then they are like blind. So just like the surveillance cameras, if you try to rob a bank and what we watch on the movies, they can easily cover up the surveillance video, and nobody knows what's happening inside that anymore. So that's one of the challenges that I can see for technical problems. In IDS reports, log and alert should be presented in a meaningful way. However, that's not going to be the case. Most of those data are ugly. It's hard to read, and that requires layers of decoding, and then try to really get into what are the useful information. And most likely, there's hundreds of the attributes, and only few of them are really matters. And again, when it comes to the data, we can have a feeling of that. Next challenge is about the detection challenges. The high volume of false positive and false negative alarms affect the overall performance of IDS. So when the intrusion detection system really working, sometimes it will make mistakes, and this happens all the time. We discuss about a false positive situation. We see that the IDS consider that as an intrusion, but it's actually not. So that's a false positive. Or IDS think that's safe, that's fine, but it's actually a threat. It's actually an intrusion, and that's considered as a false negative. So for false positive, it will, of course, stop the traffic and then say, hey, I think this is a problem. But it turned out to be, it is not really a problem, so that the connection is actually being broken up, and maybe you are waiting for that important file to come in, and it was blocked by the IDS. That's the problem of the false positive situation. On the other side, false negative will let the malicious attack come into the network and then probably generate the threats or the problems. Finally, response challenges. So what is your response when you find there is a threat? So that is, of course, directly come into the problems of the false positive. If you've been very, very strict, then when a false positive happens, you will slow down the performance. And of course, if that is really a threat, what would you do? What kind of things can you do to prevent that one keep coming in or block it completely? So sometimes the efficiency and skill of the system administrator is the person who is doing that can do a good job. But of course, we cannot always rely on an administrator, so that we want to, as computer scientists, we want to build up the automatic system to get the best balance out of it. And that is obviously a big challenge that we have. Therefore, you see that the whole cybersecurity is a big area. This thesis is obviously focusing on the intrusion detection system. So that's a subcategory of the cybersecurity. And then we need to get more focus to see what is the main thing or main novel ideas regarding in this thesis. So developing a predict model often faces obstacle because of the overwhelming volume of the alarms and also the lack of adequate information of attack scenario. So there are many papers focusing on the intrusion detections. However, none of those papers, none of those existing research areas focus on the severity of the attack or alert generated by the intrusion detection system. What they're trying to say is that there are some attacks that are more dangerous. There are some alerts that are higher level alerts. So in this case, when those things are happening, we should pay more attention to that versus the lower level attacks or lower level alarms. While there is no research is focusing on the severity of the attacks and alerts, and you can see that the response made by the higher, the more deadly or dangerous attacks or alerts, they probably need to have a stricter response versus the lower level of the threats, then they can probably go easier on those. And that's why if we can add the severity of the attack of alerts or basically adding the weight into the data mining area, then this is something that we can consider as a novel areas of the research. And basically, this paper or this thesis is going to use that idea combined with association rules and then form the whole structure in the intrusion detection of the cybersecurity area. So I want you guys to see, for dissertation, you identify the major problem, you then look into a subproblem, and then you look into the smaller part of the subproblem, try to work on this area and get improvements. And that is why we call a dissertation. You try to dissect the whole problems into a very small area, but try to do a good job in that. So the chapters in this thesis proposal, there are 5 chapters. The first chapter is the introduction, which I have introduced to you guys. The next chapter is something you should be already very familiar, since most part of it is talking about the data mining techniques. It will also talk about the data. There are several famous data in these areas. I encourage you guys to take a look at what it looks like and then have a feelings about that. Chapter 3 is the most important part of this proposal. That is a high priority alarm sequence mining. So this is the one that combines the priority with the association rules. So this chapter is something I want you guys, one of you, to present the work, so that the next slide will talk about assignments. I want you guys to think about this. Since every student need to do some presentation, and that was 10% of the overall score. You probably want to be the first one, solve this, do the presentation, especially if you are interested in the cybersecurity. I encourage you guys to volunteer and let me know if you are interested in presenting chapter 3. Chapter 4 is about the future work and schedule. This is a proposal, so it has talked about what kind of future works that you want to do. Like I said, this student has already graduated, so I have his full version of the dissertation. I may add some future works that he mentioned and the results in chapter 4 to introduce to you guys. And finally, it's about the conclusion. So that concludes the first videos I want you guys to watch and learn from the general introduction areas about the cybersecurity. And I know this video is relatively shorter to fit the whole class, because it's not the end of it. What I want you guys to do is that I want you guys to start read chapter 2, so that you can have a feeling about what it looks like. In the next video, when I'm trying to talk about chapter 2, you have a very good ideas of what it looks like, and you can learn some new things. You can see there are some new things that has not been listed in the proposal, and I can let you guys learn new things out of it. So the real assignment lies here. I want you to read chapter 2 first. Inside of the chapter 2, most of the data mining techniques has been discussed. However, there's one thing called Bayesian network. It's based on the naive-Bayes theory and goes into a higher level of the techniques that I think is very interesting. So I want you guys to read chapter 2, and when you comes to the Bayesian network area, try to read a little bit more thoroughly. And I want you to write one paragraph to describe what is the Bayesian network and submit that through the Blackboard. Consider that as the assignment of the day. And of course, if you are interested in presenting the chapter 3, let me know as soon as possible. Basically, I want you to identify yourself by the next class, so that the chapter 3 can be presented by you. So that would be what I'm expecting you guys to do for the introduction part of the cybersecurity.